Farm Week is a production of the Mississippi State University Extension Service.
Hi, I'm Artis Ford.
And I'm Leighton Spann. As you can tell, we're starting off today's Farm Week differently.
It's pledge time in Mississippi Public Broadcasting. We know times are tough, but MPB has been there for you in the good times and the bad times.
Farm Week will celebrate its 34th anniversary on MPB this fall. That's commitment no matter how you define it.
So please dial the toll-free number on your screen now and know that your pledge of support will support Farm Week and MPB.
Today on Farm Week, the field is set for the Commissioner of Agriculture race in Mississippi.
This year has resulted in some unusual 4-bract cotton in Mississippi.
Mississippi 4-Hers learn what cooperatives are all about.
In Southern gardening, don't let the shady part of your landscape get the upper hand. Give your shade garden some shady Southern charm.
In the markets, tough times for chicken companies, while weak demand weighs on cotton prices.
In the feature segment, down in Lamar County, Mississippi, the county's Soil and Water Conservation District is promoting the use of native trees with schools and homeowners. The children get a sense of ownership and some conservation education when they have a class tree.
And this has given our students an opportunity to learn about trees and to plant a tree, to have a tree that's their own for them to take care of. We integrate this in our math activities. We measure the tree, we chart its growth, we draw pictures for art.
Good day, everyone. I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Artis Ford. Welcome to Farm Week.
The field has been set for the Mississippi Commissioner of Agriculture race.
Leighton, with only one candidate, the outcome was already known for the Democratic and Reform Party nominations. There were 3 Republican candidates, but the nominee managed to secure enough votes to avoid a runoff. State Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith of Brookhaven defeated 4-time candidate Max Phillips of Taylorsville and State Representative Danny Reed of Ackerman. With 99% of the precincts reporting, Hyde-Smith had received 53% of the Republican vote, Phillips 95% and Reed 12%. This sets the stage for the November 8th general election. Hyde-Smith will face Democrat and Pickens Mayor Joel Gill and Reform Party candidate Kathy L. Toole of Biloxi.
A higher incidence of malformed cotton plants than usual are being reported in Mississippi this year. The condition is commonly known as 4-bract squares. It is believed to be related to later than normal planting in the state due to difficult weather conditions. Extension cotton specialist Darren Dodds described the condition in cotton known as 4-bract squares to producers attending the recent demonstration tour at the Pontotoc Ridge Flatwoods Branch Experiment Station. Dodds says the very hot, very dry weather at the end of May and 1st of June in the first few weeks of cotton emergence this year is the likely cause of the crop malformity, an additional or 4th bract on the cotton plant. In most cases, the problem occurs on the lower branches of a plant, and in most cases, the fruit will fall to the ground.
We've had some consultants reporting up to 65% 4-bract squares in some of their varieties. So it's been a serious problem. The one benefit is these 4-bract squares typically occur on the older fruit on the plant. As that plant tends to grow and put on more fruit, it tends to correct itself.
The extension cotton specialist says the last year in which Mississippi had higher than average 4-bract squares in cotton was 2007. The USDA is estimating there are 600,000 acres of cotton planted in Mississippi. That is an increase of 43% over 2010. Overall, the 2011 crop is behind, according to Darren Dodds. Because of that, he says the weather for harvest time is going to be more critical than ever in 2011.
In general, I feel like our crop is about 2 to 3 weeks later than it normally is, and that'll probably translate to 2 or 3 weeks late on the back end. So we really are needing a harvest window like we had in 2010. If we have a fall like we had in 2009 with the rain and such, it's going to create a lot of problems for our growers in Mississippi.
In addition to cotton and corn, the row crops portion of the tour featured an extensive discussion of soybean nutrition and soybean weed control systems. There was also a concurrent tour of the station's sweet potato research fields, as well as the laboratory and greenhouse for sweet potato research. From Pontotoc, Mississippi, I'm Leighton Spann reporting.
Many of the young people on the 2011 4-H Cooperative Business Tour didn't know what a co-op was before this summer. Now they have a new appreciation for the impact that these cooperative businesses have in their communities. The 4-Hers visited cooperatives in Mississippi to get an inside look at the operations, and they were also educated about the state's #1 industry, agriculture. Farmweek's Amy Taylor reports.
Mississippi State University Extension recently provided an opportunity for young people to see firsthand how cooperative businesses function. One of the stops on the 4-H Cooperative Business Tour was Delta and Pine Land Company in Scott, Mississippi. LaChardonnay Johnson says she has a better understanding of the field trials conducted by Monsanto Company at D&PL.
We're learning about the different ways that they improve crops and how people grow them and teach them how to take care of them a little bit better. It's part of our cooperative business tour that we're doing this week, learning about how co-ops work. Since I've been in the Delta, I've learned a lot of things on the impact that the Delta has on agriculture, not only in Mississippi, but throughout the nation and throughout the world, and how they are improving things for the population growth that is up to come.
With agriculture covering about 11 million acres in Mississippi, Johnson says it's important to learn what cooperatives in the Delta do for the industry. In addition to D&PL Company, 4-Hers toured Farmers Grain Terminal Incorporated and Staple Cotton Cooperative. Rachel Gaines says she has learned the Delta keeps the ag industry strong by providing quality products and being good stewards to the land.
In the Delta, we've learned from Monsanto and the Farmers Grain how important agriculture is in Mississippi. It is our top industry, and without it, we wouldn't have all the resources available to us. And they're always finding new things to help the environment with corn and cotton and soybeans.
Young people with business aspirations who went on the 4-H Cooperative Business Tour say this knowledge will be useful when they begin their own careers. From Scott, Mississippi, I'm Amy Taylor reporting.
Do you think a shady landscape has to be boring? In this week's Southern Gardening segment, Extension horticulturist Dr. Gary Bachman shows us how proper plant selection can make a shady landscape shine.
Nothing beats the shade cast by live oaks during the hot summer season, especially for a shade garden. Today I'm at the home of my friends Diane and Charlie Henderson. With a western exposure, gardening can be a challenge in southern Mississippi, even in the shade. The dense shade cast by these live oaks certainly goes a long ways in modifying the heat. The planting beds are all raised to aid soil drainage. Live oak leaf litter is used as a natural mulching material, breaking down and enriching the soil. Correct plant selection is also critical for gardening success. We're used to seeing Wisteria scrambling over everything in the early spring, but here, Wisteria has been trained to be shrub-like. Planted in a spot receiving full sun, there are still a few of the pendulous purple flowers defiantly blooming. In another full sun location, the gray-green century plant anchors the landscape bed. In the shade, many times foliage plants are the best choice, and they don't have to be boring. There are many colors and textures that work well in combinations. Cutleaf philodendron adds texture with its large leaves, and shell ginger with the irregular stripes of yellow and green give a tropical feel. Flowering variegated liriope fits right in. Colorful annuals like flowering Vinca are placed strategically to add splashes of color. Many gardeners think we can mold the environment to meet our planting desires, but sometimes letting the environment win is the best advice for an attractive landscape. I'm Gary Bachman for Southern Gardening.
Gary says when you match your plant's needs to your environment, you get great landscape performance. Leighton, Native trees are popping up more and more in Lamar County, Mississippi. In our feature segment, you'll see that they're growing in home landscapes and at local schools. Time now for the markets with Leighton. And Leighton, you say it's the same old story for cotton and exports.
That's right. We're going to talk about a new report in just a moment, Artis. Also ahead this week, it appears that Brazil is not expanding its soybean acres. Chicken prices, meanwhile, decline and hurt margins for producers, while the heat wave tightens the cattle supply. The Thursday, August 4th, weekly export sales report for cotton is being described as anemic by DTN as far as new crop business. The lack of demand continues to weigh on the market. Analyst Virgil Robinson says both global and domestic cotton supplies appear to be increasing.
We've taken 50% of the value of cotton away since April. We have acknowledged the fact that India, China, and Pakistan are likely to grow pretty sizable crops. Unfortunately, we have something of a production issue here in the U.S. in both Texas and Georgia. But the combination of increased acres year over year and production is likely to produce a bit more cotton supply in the U.S., and global supplies are forecast to increase about 9 million metric tons year over year, and ending stocks grow about 7 million metric tons. So from a supply perspective, we're not concerned about a shortage moving forward.
Turning from cotton to soybeans, it appears that Brazil is not going to be adding to its global supply of beans this year. Analyst Sue Martin says the reason is simple. Brazil is going head over heels into bioenergy crops now.
Brazil's looking at expanding sugarcane acres down there. They're also looking at corn. Those are ethanol products, energy products, and Brazil's big into ethanol. I think that when I look at the bean crop out of Brazil, we're not going to see an expansion there unless price creates it, and that means running higher. You look at the carryout, and we're estimating 175 million carryout.
To transition from the row crop markets to livestock, we have this trivia quiz for you to be thinking about. Here's the question: what Mississippi county was once known as the Jersey County of the South? The answer is one of these: Walthall, Octibbeha, Lincoln, or Tate. Stay with us to find out the right choice.
We're going to pause now for a short break on Farm Week. Coming up, we'll look at the calendar in the second part of the markets. Leighton Spann says there's bad news for prices in the poultry market. We'll also look at the cattle market. In the feature segment today, see how native trees are making a difference in Lamar County.
Hi, I'm Leighton Spann.
And I'm Artis Ford. We're going to take a break from today's Farm Week to ask for your support. It's time for the August Pledge Drive on Mississippi Public Broadcasting.
Normally, MPB preempts Farm Week's Saturday broadcast during its pledge drives. We asked to stay on air so Farm Week viewers could express their support for Farm Week and Mississippi Public Broadcasting. Farm
Week will celebrate its 34th anniversary on MPB this October. That's extraordinary commitment. That means in spite of good budgets and bad budgets, the Mississippi State University Extension Service and MPB stuck with Farm Week.
We ask you now to pick up the phone and call the toll-free number on your screen to support MPB. You can also go online at www.mpbonline.org. Now, back to Farm Week.
Before we get back to the markets, let's look at the Farm Week calendar. Mississippi State University's McNeil Unit will hold its annual Muscadine Field Day on Saturday, August 13th. The McNeil Unit is located just south of McNeil. The hours are 8:30 to 11:30 in the morning. There's no registration fee. Almost all of the Muscadine varieties available to the public are grown at the unit. A Mississippi Market Maker Workshop is scheduled for Tuesday, August 23rd. It takes place from 10 a.m. to noon at the MSU Coastal Research and Extension Center on Pops Ferry Road in Biloxi. Market Maker allows you to market your products via the web to a national audience. Go to our Farm Week website at farmweek.msucares.com for information on these and other events. Now check out this Farm Week snapshot.
A decline in white meat chicken prices is typical following the 4th of July each summer. However, analysts say the drop is much steeper this year, 20% lower than a year ago for chicken breast and tenders. BB&T Capital Markets trader Heather Jones says that declining egg sets should translate into poultry production cuts for this industry soon. However, she notes that bird weights are heavier now, up 3 to 4% from a year ago. Analysts say that demand for chicken began softening back in May and June due to continued weak export volumes and a tough U.S. food service environment. And the most recent sign of weak U.S. chicken exports came from Russia just this last week. Prime Minister Vladimir Putin proposed a lower poultry import quota for the year 2012. He projected his nation will only import 350,000 metric tons of chicken next year. Putin said the quota was contingent on Russia joining the World Trade Organization. It's no secret it's been a hot week in the Mid-South, and this weather is impacting the beef sector. Drover's Cattle Network reports many producers in the South and Midwest have sold cattle because pastures are simply too dry. In addition, the heat slows the ability of cattle to gain weight, which means producers may be selling them at a lighter total weight. I talked to Extension Ag economist John Michael Riley on Thursday about this market and the recent Cattle on Feed report. John Michael, did the July 22nd on-feed report show any evidence of this heat situation in the cattle?
It did. It did, especially if you look at the placements number for that report. That number was up 4.1% from a year ago. Analysts expected it to actually be down about 6.5%. So a huge swing in the placement number compared to what was expected. Keep in mind this is typically a small number year in and year out, so any marginal changes do create a larger percentage change. But still, the fact that there were more cattle placed and well above expectation is an indication that those numbers were higher, especially if you look at placements in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. Those placements of cattle were much higher, and even cattle weighing under 700 pounds were much higher. So the drought conditions that are gripping the southwestern U.S. is definitely showing up in our cattle numbers.
And as we talked a moment ago, actually pasture conditions in Mississippi have improved somewhat recently. But I'm sure this next on-feed report, this situation is not going away as far as other parts of the country and the impact on beef.
It's not showing. Yeah, Mississippi, the pasture conditions have improved. They were about 41% at the start of July, rated poor and very poor, down to about 18% now. But if you look at places like Texas and Oklahoma, 93% of the Texas pastures poor and very poor, and 86% of Oklahoma pastures poor and very poor. So a really bad condition over there, continuing to get worse, not get better.
So when we look at that, how is this going to impact prices here as we move ahead here in the next month or two? Well,
that high placements number was a bit of a bearish number because it was so much higher than expected, pushing more cattle into the feedlot in the short term. That's going to, in 4 to 6 months, those cattle will be coming off. But if we think about this from a long-term perspective, definitely going to see less feeder cattle available, less fed cattle as those work their way through the system. Cow numbers are expected to continue to decline. Beef heifers retained for replacement were down or expected to be down again for 2011 and carrying forward. So just to really continue to just worsen this supply situation that that's already tight.
And as you noted, again, what we're seeing is lighter weight cattle coming to market. Right. Producers are taking them a lot earlier.
They're having to. The pastures are dry. They're having to liquidate earlier than expected.
Wrapping up the markets now with our trivia answer for you. The correct choice out of our list of possibilities was B, Octibbeha. In the 1920s, this county was first known as the Jersey County of the South because of the large number of dairies located there.
In the feature segment today, helping people to see the trees in the forest. I'm talking about native trees. Because they're common, we don't always see them, much less think about planting them. In Lamar County, Mississippi, and many others, there's a growing emphasis in getting urban homeowners and other landowners to plant native trees. The virtues of native trees are even being learned by the young. This story first aired on Farm Week earlier this year.
Who can tell me some parts of the tree? What part of the tree is like a straw that just sucks things up out of the ground?
Patty Permenter's second grade class has its own red maple tree on the playground at Oak Grove Lower Elementary School. Permenter's pride was planted in 2009. The board-certified teacher says her students take care of the tree, giving them a sense of ownership that a picture in a book could never provide.
We have worked with a lot of different agencies to get science materials for the children. And one of the best projects that we've been involved in is the Teaching Tree Project. And this has given our students an opportunity to learn about trees and to plant a tree, to have a tree that's their own for them to take care of. We integrate this in our math activities. We measure the tree, we chart its growth, we draw pictures for art.
Permenter students are benefiting from the Teaching Trees project started in 2009. 4 new elementary schools were completed that year in Lamar County to deal with its explosive population growth. The county's close proximity to Hattiesburg caused it to grow 41% from 2000 to 2010. New schools need landscaping. That presented an opportunity to plant native trees and introduce the students to them. The Teaching Trees project was spearheaded by the Lamar County Soil and Water Conservation District. In addition to other native trees, 5 Mississippi natives were planted in a small grove at each new school: the southern magnolia, ball cypress, longleaf pine, red maple, and a Nuttall oak.
And the teachers, when they talk about trees and forestry to the elementary students, they can walk outside and have an outdoor classroom environment and talk about trees that are native to our state.
Kids today spend a lot of time in front of the TV, you know, watching video games, playing video games, watching TV. When you have trees in a setting where they can get to it and touch it every day, it makes a difference in their learning and taking things in.
Can you hold the dirt and put the whole thing down in there?
Exposing urban children to hands-on conservation education is a high priority for the Lamar County Board of Supervisors.
Today, with this rapid growth, we need it more. They're working with our children in the schools, these flower gardens. A lot of times this is probably the only time some of these children get this. Naturally, the more natural trees we get out from this area, that produces your oxygen, it purifies your water. So they're very important in different ways.
We have the great help from the Board of Supervisors and a lot of sister agencies, partnerships, NRCS and Extension Service, Forestry Commission, and many others, you know, Soil and Water Conservation Commission. We all work together to introduce conservation education to the county because we just think that's the right thing to do.
Many Mississippi soil and water conservation districts are concentrating on getting landowners to consider the advantages of native trees. First, they are adapted to Mississippi soils and climate. Native trees require less maintenance, and the local wildlife prefer them. In the winter, it can be hard to imagine, but some native trees, like the Nuttall oak, have beautiful fall foliage and can produce acorns for wildlife food. Another wildlife food source is the mulberry, which produces fruit that can be used for making pies and jam.
Then, like you say, we have a whole wide variety of large trees, of medium-sized trees, of small trees, some of which are very showy in spring, some of which are not, but we have a wide variety of species to choose from. Just in the oaks, for example, we have about 40 different oaks, native oaks in Mississippi. So we have a wide variety to choose from.
Extension Forestry Professor Glenn Hughes says, when choosing a native tree, ask yourself a few questions. How big is the space where the tree will go? Small saplings can grow into big problems later. What is the soil type, and is the area predominantly wet or dry? Do you want an evergreen or a tree whose leaves will turn color and drop in the fall? What about a bloomer like the parsley hawthorn or the river birch with its attractive bark? Whatever one you choose, it should be transplanted generally in the December through February time period in Mississippi.
Generally, the best time to plant a tree is when it's dormant, when it's not growing. So, and that's why a lot of tree planting is done in winter. Now, that being said, if you get a tree that's grown in a container, that widens your window, and so you can plant, you know, well into the growing season.
Don't assume, however, that native trees can be transplanted anywhere and forgotten. Regardless of whether you plant a bare root or container-grown seedling, you want to keep it watered during its early years so it can establish a root system. Patty Permenter says the rewards are worth the effort. Her class tree provides a real-world experience that allows her to introduce other science subjects.
They really start caring about nature more, and it's not even though we're just concentrating on the tree, they may look more closely at nature, whether we're looking at clouds or whether we're looking at insects, but it just opens a lot of doors for them, and that science door that we want to get open, and we want them to care about our world.
From Oak Grove, Mississippi, I'm Artist Ford reporting. And you can watch this story again on our Farm Week website. That's farmweek.msucares.com. You can also get some links and phone numbers to help get you started with native trees. We'll have some links to Mississippi State University publications on planting native trees and native shrubs. That's farmweek.msucares.com. Late in the second Friday in February is Arbor Day. Many conservation districts will be handing out free trees, as well as the Forestry Commission, so be aware of that. We are at the end of Farm Week for this week. On our show next week, the next Delta Rice Luncheon takes place in September.
And we will be whetting your appetite for it by taking you back to last year's event. It featured well-known Mississippi chef Robert St. John, and it reminded us of the economic contributions of rice.
In Southern Gardening, see what's new in the Sahara Zinnia series. There are some new colors, and they're still hardy. For the rest of the Farm Week crew, I'm Artist Ford.
And I'm Leighton Spann. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be back next week.
Before we go today, we want to ask one more time for your support of Farm Week and Mississippi Public Broadcasting.
Farm Week has been on MPB since October of 1977. That's a show of commitment from both the Mississippi State University Extension Service and MPB.
We ask you now to go to your phone and call in your pledge of support. Farm Week comes to you at no charge, but you know that it costs money to keep Farm Week and MPB on the air.
Call the toll-free number on your screen, and we thank you for your support.